So ladies and gentlemen, we're on day 3. Now here they gave us a really big table. And I took the liberty of starting the table before I was videotaping, so we didn't waste time watching me draw. So this is really what goes on in the real world. When you're talking about data, and we actually just did this school year when they had a vote on whether or not to extend the high school, you have to talk to all the people that vote. Now, in Riverhead, we didn't talk to every eligible voter, and according to this problem in this rural town, they talked to every eligible voter. Well, let's see how many eligible voters there were. If I add up the number of men who said yes and the number of females who said yes, I had 273 adults who said yes. No, I had 116 men and I had 114 women. That meant 230 said no. 6 men and 6 women both had no opinion. So if I add up how many eligible voters, I have 515 eligible voters. Now let's also break it down by age group, because that's really what we do in the real world, is we look at age groups. 18 to 25-year-olds, 75 were spoken to. And then 26 to 40, we had 203 eligible voters were 26 to 40 years old. 149 were 41 to 65, and 88 were 66 and older. So that also adds up to 515. So now I'm very confident that I have 515 total people in this town who are eligible to vote. Now, based on this survey, do you think the school board should recommend a new building for the high school, and explain your answer? Well, building a new high school, if you look at it, we had 200, so the probability of a new high school, we had 273 said yes out of 515. That gives me a probability of 53%. That's more than half. So if more than half of the people want a new high school, my answer to this would be yes. You always have to answer these questions with a yes or a no. So do you think the school board should recommend a new high school? Yes, and explain, because 53% want one. So because 53% of the residents want one. So you have to, again, yes or no, and then a full answer. This is kind of similar to what you'd see on a Regents. They're not going to give you a very simplistic one like some of the ones we talked about. They're going to give you something like this. Number 2, an eligible voter is picked at random. So at random, again, means, you know, from this chart, and if this person is 21 years old, well, do you think he or she would indicate that the town should build a new high school? Why or why not? Well, now we're talking about the 21-year-olds. So they say a person is picked at random and this person is 21 years old. Well, if you want to know about the 21-year-old wanting to get a new high school, we're really focused in now on this column. And we're focused in on this column because we were doing this by age group. And so the probability that a 21-year-old says yes on this model would look like this. The probability of 21 and yes. Well, there's 29 men who said yes and 32 female who said yes out of the total of this age group, 75. So this would be 29 plus 32 out of the 75, and that would give me a total of 61 out of 75. That's about 81%. That is a lot of people. Now, why or why not? So I would say, yes, the young people want the new high school. Why? Well, 81% said yes. First of all, 81% said yes. And I would think that that would probably be because they just graduated, and you know, they could probably give you a list of everything they thought was wrong with their high school, and they want a new high school. An eligible voter is picked at random. Now this person is 55 years old. Well, if you're 55 years old, now we're in this row. Now we're here. If we're 55, here's where we're at. And so now I'm talking about the 149 people. And do you think he or she would indicate that the town should get a new high school? Well, if I look at this, I'm thinking the no was bigger for the men, and the no was only one less than the women. So here, this is 66, but here, this is 79. So I'm actually thinking that they would go with no. So again, if a person is 55 years old, would he or she indicate that the town should build a new high school? So the probability of 55 and yes, again, that was 66 out of 149, and you type that in on your calculator, you're only at 41%. So I would say no, because less than half wanted a new high school. Maybe they don't want their taxes going up. Maybe their taxes are too high. I mean, that would be a pretty good reason to say no. Number 4, the school board wondered if the probability of recommending a new high school was different for different categories. Why do you think the survey classified voters in the different categories? And you look and you would say, because yes, it absolutely is different for the different categories. If you look at the percents, the younger you are, the higher the percent that you're going to say yes. And the older you are, the higher the percent that you're going to actually say no. Because, you know, older people, they don't want to keep paying for schools, especially if their kids grow up and they're not going there anymore. So it definitely makes a lot of sense to go with the categories. Now, one of the things that they do on the next page is they say, let's clean up this table. Let's make this a whole lot easier to read. So instead of going with male and female, if you look on the next page, they're just going with plain old yes and plain old no. So I'm going to just get rid of my yes and my no columns. And these now would be just the numbers added up. So if I went with my 18 to 25-year-olds, 61 said yes. Oops, that goes here. 61 said yes. 14 said no, and if you recall, these were both zeros. So that's still my 75%. Now my 26 to 40-year-olds, if I add this up, I had 6 that had no answer. And 26 to 40-year-olds, I had 84 that said no, but I had 113 saying yes. So again, the younger you are, the more likely it is that you're going to say no. These numbers are much higher than these numbers. And then as we get into the older folks whose kids are grown, not going to school anymore, we tend to see that the no's start to get a lot more. So let's take a look at that. And here we no longer need it broken down by gender. We just want the yes, no's, and the no answers. So we take a look here, and we say, okay, 41 to 65 years old, 66 said yes, while 79 said no. So again, the no's start to grow, and 4 had no answer. 66 and older, 33 men or women said yes, but 53 said no. 2 had no answer. There's my 88 people. And above 66, oh, that's it. So there's my totals now, 273, 230, and 12. So this is a little bit easier to read. So here's my overall yes and no column, my no answer, and here's my totals. And again, the yeses, the no's, the no answers, 53, different age groups, ends up with 515. So now number 6 says, a local news service plans to write an article summarizing survey results. 3 possible headlines for this article are provided below. Is each headline accurate or inaccurate? Support your answer using the probabilities. Well, let's take a look. The first one says that, the headline says, Waldo voters likely to support a high school. Is this accurate? I would absolutely say yes, it is. So headline 1. So headline 1. Yes, it's accurate because the yeses, 273 out of the total 515, gives me 53% of the population, more than half the population, want the new high school. Now, I'm not writing all this out. You can write that out. Headline 2, older voters less likely to support a new high school. That is true. Headline 2. Because older voters that said no, so yes, this is true because the older voters who said no was 230. The older voters who said no, sorry, I'm going too fast. Let me explain where I'm getting my numbers from. Older voters would be here, the 79 and the 53. And if you're an older voter, the total older voters were here, the 149 and the 88. So older voters who said no, this is 123 older voters said no, out of the older voters, which is 237, gives us 56% said they did not want to build a new high school. So here we have to really, really look at who we're talking about. Because if we don't take a look at who we're talking about, we could definitely be picking the wrong thing. So you have to read the problem carefully and look at the words. Are they talking about the universal, the overall set, or are they putting a condition? Now here I put a condition. I gave only older people. Here this was everybody. But here this was a condition. I only wanted the older people, so you gotta take your time. Headline 3, younger voters not interested in a new. Well, here's the younger voters. And the younger voters would be here. These are like the young ones. And we know that that's not true. Headline 3 would be a big no. Because we know the younger voters said 61 out of 75 said yes, and that was 81%. 81% said yes. So 1 and 2 were definitely yes, yes. This guy was definitely no. And so then number 7, the school board decided to put the decision on whether or not to build a high school up for referendum. So that's, your parents might have went and voted on the referendum for our new school addition. You might remember that. At the last referendum regarding this issue, only 25 of the eligible 18 to 25-year-old voted. So there's 75, only 25 showed up, according to this, and that's generally what happens. Young people don't show up. 110 of the eligible voters, 26 to 40 voted. So now, out of 26 to 40, there were 203 people, but only 110 of them showed up. And 130 of the 41 to 65, now that's pretty almost everybody in this age group showed up. And 80 of the 66 and older. Now look at, that's almost this whole group. So these two groups, just about everybody showed up. These two groups, less than half showed up. So they say, if the voters in the next election have a similar turnout, do you think the referendum will pass? Well, if we go with what they talked about here, do I think the referendum will pass? Yeah, I think it's going to pass. That gives me about 169 out of 345 people. If you go with the numbers in the problem and you add up the yeses, you get 169, and the number of people who showed up was 345. So yeah, I think that it will go. But again, this is just a prediction. Do I think that this is, you know, definitely going to happen? No, it's a prediction. We predict things based upon polls. So the rest of this packet has a big thing all about asthma and breathing. And then they go back to the high school again. So I want you to do your best trying to do the asthma problem, going back to the high school problem again. And see how you're doing with this. And if you're having any trouble, please let me know, and we will absolutely spend a lot more time going over different things. Good luck.